friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I am so excited to share with you one of my favorite young adult series that I have been reading, and it is by an author named Kendar Blake. And that series that I have fallen in love with is called Three Dark Crowns. Oh, just look at the book. Like, just look how loved this book is. Like, I can't even begin to tell you guys how much I like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the general series, how I came about it, the general premise. So if that sounds good to you, hang tight because we're gonna go ahead and get into it. So this first book, Three Dark Crowns, first came into my life in an Owl Crate box. I don't remember what year or month it came to me, but I immediately picked it up and started reading it. This is written, as I mentioned, by Kendar Blake. It is not her first series that she has written. There are some other books or trilogies that she's written, but I've never read those. I hadn't heard of her, but boy, do I love her. Each of these books can be found on Amazon. They have them in the Kindle version, they have hardcover, and they have paperback. From what I found for them, you're able to get them using Prime if that's something that you have. And I think paperback retails for like around $9 and the hardcovers retail for about $13. In this series, there are 3 actual novels, and then there's a 4th one coming out, which will be the conclusion. So this would actually be a quartet of a series, and there also are 3 novellas. I have only read one of the novellas because the other 2 were only published on Kindle, and I, for some reason, am just not a Kindle person. Small tangent. I tried real hard. I got a Nook from Barnes & Noble when I graduated from college, and I liked it, but just the feeling of holding a book, there's nothing better than that, in my opinion, as weird as that sounds. And just like holding the pages and flipping them, like, it's just an experience that I love to have. I love having physical books, not electronic files of books. So for that reason, I've not actually read them. So book 1 is called Three Dark Crowns. I also love that it has those sort of cut pages, like this was a stolen manuscript. I just am such a sucker for books bound in that way, or pages cut in that way. Book 2 is One Dark Throne. The novella that came out before book 3 was Queens of Fenbren, and there are, I believe, two short stories that were encased in here. And then the most recent book that came out this fall and took me far too long to read because I had no free time was Two Dark Reigns. So essentially, this is set in what feels like a somewhat medieval time period. The setting is on a mysterious island that sits off in the middle of a body of water that can only be accessed by people on the mainland if the spirits or powers of the island allow them access to sail there. So if you're just sailing out and about, you won't stumble on this particular land unless, of course, there's a need or a pull that brings you there. So it's very interesting in that premise. I have to say, even though it is set in a medieval time period and I like medieval books, this doesn't feel that way. It has like this modern flair to it that I also really appreciate in the way the story is written and depicted. So I like it for that. So essentially, on top of this land being somewhat mysterious, every generation there are 3 triplets born from a queen. And with those triplets, each one is basically designed to have a certain gift. There can be an elemental gift, there can be a poisoner gift, or there can be what's called a naturalist gift. An elemental gift means that you have the ability to essentially work with the elements, so fire, water, wind, all of that stuff you're able to manipulate and work almost like magic in a sense, but not cheesy magic. The second one is poisoner, which means that you are somebody who has the ability to work with poisons, ingest poisons, use it to poison other people. Like, it's just interweaved into who you are as a person, and you can use the power of poisons to help or hurt people around you. And then there are the naturalist gifts, where a person will identify with and have a bond with a very specific animal called a familiar, and that's a piece of who they are. They're very tied to the wilderness, and they have those really pure ties to the land. And so each one is given a special gift, or as I shouldn't say given, but is born with a special gift. So in this series, there are three main characters. You have Arsinoe, who is the naturalist. You have Catherine, who is the poisoner, and Mirabella, who is the elemental. And essentially what happens is after the queen gives birth to these triplets, she leaves the island with her king consort, aka her husband, and they're never to be seen again. And what then happens is each village, the poisoner village, elemental village, and the natural village, they all come and get each one of these daughters who essentially is given or born with that particular gift. And the whole purpose of separating and raising each one of these girls in their natural environment is to raise them to be warriors, because eventually the three of these girls are going to have to battle against each other to the death in order to figure out who will be the next queen of this particular land. I just found the premise of that so interesting. It's like a little bit of this whole idea of there's like this magical fantasy component to it, mixed with like a little bit of Hunger Games aspect to it, set in this like medieval world. It's got female protagonists. Like that premise was so fascinating to me. And the way the story is structured is each chapter is essentially focused on what's going on in each one of these girls' lives. It's told from a third-person narration, so there are a lot of characters to keep track of in here, which when I first started reading, I was like, whoa, this is a lot going on, but eventually you get acclimated to it and you kind of are able to really easily keep track of what's going on in each particular girl's life. It's really powerful too, because I like and dislike things. Each one of the three essentially potential queens that they are raising. Like there are certain times where I'm just like, God, Catherine is the worst, but she's also incredibly powerful as a poisoner, and I'm so interested to see where she goes. There are other times where I'm like, Arsinoe super whiny, like cut it out. But at the same time, like I want to know what's going to happen with her story. So at different points, I found myself rooting for each of the different girls to be the queen, but it doesn't work that way. They can't all be queen. So it's been really interesting to see how my feelings have really changed back and forth, and seeing each girl, I think is really interesting. I also love the way that Kendar Blair uses dialogue and also setting description. Like I just am immersed in this world and I am curious about what's going to happen. And there aren't things in here that are so ridiculous or fantastical that I lose the sense of reality to it. It does feel very real, and I really have enjoyed this whole series. The books obviously chronicle essentially. Book 1 is focused on preparing each girl for the fight. The fight is getting closer. Book 2 focuses on like the actual fight itself. And then the third book is focusing more on the aftermath of the battle between the three queens. And the novella essentially gives you some context about the girls being in the same home together for a few years before they were actually separated and then raised to kill each other. And then also a different type of queen from another like piece of history hundreds of years before these three girls came to be in existence. The only thing I will say is I dislike the fact that there are novellas in here, because I feel like you should be able to, in a quartet, you should be able to get all your content in there. You shouldn't need 3 other novellas. But I will say that I liked this. I didn't think it was critical to my understanding of the plot. So I feel like those are more enrichment, and I haven't felt like, oh no, because I haven't read the other 2 novellas, I'm desperately missing out on some kind of plot here, which is good, because I would have been really upset if I would have had to find a way to electronically download or read. And I also, by the way, hate reading on the computer. I hate it. I hate it the most. If I'm reading something I actually like want to pay attention to or want to like definitely keep in my long-term memory, it can't be read on the computer. So I would have been really upset if I had to do that. But I highly recommend this quartet. The 4th book, I don't know when it's coming out. I think these have predominantly been coming out in the September, October, fall months, so I would imagine it would be coming out this fall. I've actually followed Kendar Blake on Instagram, and I have followed her on Amazon, because apparently you can follow people on Amazon, like people who are noteworthy, and it will actually notify me when the book is on pre-order, and I will definitely be pre-ordering it. I've also followed Kendar Blake on Instagram because there's been an occasional time or two where she's posted about about going to like a local bookstore, and she's come close, but not close enough to the Boston area. But if she ever came, I would love to meet her and just learn more about the world that she built in this, because it's just been so fascinating. I cannot recommend this to you guys enough. I mean, the series will just quite honestly read itself once you get your hands on it. So let me know in the comments below if you've read this or anything else from her, or if you're gonna read it, let me know your thoughts on it afterwards, because I would love to talk more to you guys about these three characters, because they are just so compelling and so fascinating, and I just really haven't fallen hard for a book series in a while, so I definitely recommend this to you. All right, guys, that is it for me. I will talk to you in the next video real soon. Bye.